At dinner with my parents, I got a text. Leave. Now. 5 minutes later, I knew why. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even excuse myself. I slid my phone into my lap, grabbed my bag from the back of my chair, and stood up without a key. Word. My mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My dad's eyes narrowed. But before either of them could speak, I stepped away from the table and walked straight toward the front door. The moment it clicked shut behind me, my phone buzzed. Again, an address short and unmarked, followed by just 2 words. Hurry, please. My first instinct was that this had to be a mistake. Maybe wrong number, maybe a prank. But my gut told me otherwise. I knew who sent it. I recognized the writing style, the clipped tone, the urgency without explanation. It was Alex. And if Alex was telling me to leave without speaking to my parents, something was very, very wrong. Alex and I had been close since college. He was the kind of friend who'd text me when he saw a store selling the exact sweater I once admired, or would drive across town to bring me soup when I was sick. He didn't do drama. He didn't pull stunts. So if he was telling me to move, I moved. I got into my car and drove, my mind racing through possibilities. My parents lived in a quiet neighborhood. Big houses, manicured lawns, the kind of place where nothing ever seemed urgent. But Alex's apartment was 20 minutes away, on the other side of the city. I hit every green light, almost like the road wanted me there faster. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see someone following me. My pulse was pounding so hard that I barely noticed my phone buzzing again until I was already pulling into Alex's street. This time, the yow message just said, "Park 2 blocks away." I did as told, then walked quickly, my flat slapping against the pavement. When I got to his building, he was already standing outside, scanning the street. He didn't wave, he didn't smile. He just reached out, grabbed my hand, and said quietly, "We need to talk, but not here." And then, before I could even form the question, he was guiding me toward the back alley, away from the streetlights, away from the front door, away from whatever it was my parents couldn't know I'd been told. It was only when we turned the corner and he stopped abruptly that I saw it. The reason for his urgency, the thing that made my stomach drop so fast I thought I'd be sick. I froze in place, my breath catching in my throat. It wasn't just one thing. It was a scene. A whole snapshot of something I should never have seen. Parked under the flickering light of a half-broken street lamp was my parents' car. My dad's silver sedan, the one he never let anyone else drive, with the plates I'd memorized since high school. The trunk was open, not wide, just enough for me to see shapes inside. Black duffel bags, at least 4 of them, all identical. And next to it, standing with his back partially to us, was a man I didn't recognize, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark hoodie and gloves. He was speaking low into his phone, glancing around every few seconds, like he was waiting for someone. And then I realized he wasn't alone. My mother was there too. She wasn't wearing her dinner outfit anymore. Instead, she had on sneakers, a zip-up jacket, and her hair pulled back tight. She was pacing in small circles, her arms folded, occasionally stopping to peek into one of the bags. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught fragments. "Before sunrise? They won't check. It's already wired." My pulse was deafening. Alex's grip on my wrist tightened just enough to make me look at him. "You weren't supposed to see this," he whispered, "but you needed to." I wanted to ask why. I wanted to demand answers, but I couldn't. Move my eyes from my mother. She stopped pacing, looked up sharply, and pulled her phone from her pocket. A second later, I heard the muffled buzz in my own bag. I didn't dare reach for it. Alex leaned in closer, his voice low and urgent. "If they realize you're here, we don't have time to leave quietly. Are you ready to hear the part that's going to make you walk away from them forever?" I didn't answer him. I couldn't. My mind was still clawing at the image of my mother standing in the dim light with those bags, like some stranger wearing her face. Alex took that as my answer anyway. He pulled me farther back into the shadows, his words sharp but measured. "Those bags? They're not theirs. They're not even from here. 2 nights ago, I got a call from someone I know in freight security. A shipment went missing. Not just any shipment. Cash. Untraceable, pre-sorted, meant to move fast. The kind of thing you don't report without starting a war. Guess who showed up on a camera near the warehouse gate? My stomach turned cold. He didn't need to say it. He just held my gaze until I whispered, "My parents." He nodded. And tonight, they were supposed to move it to a safe house. Only the guy they're meeting with? He gestured toward the man in the hoodie. He's not from their side. I've seen him before. He works for the people they stole it from. My hands went numb. I thought about the quiet dinner an hour ago, my mother asking if I wanted more wine, my father talking about fixing the fence. And then Alex's first text, slicing through it all like a blade. "Why tell me?" I finally managed to ask. His jaw tightened. "Because if they get in that car with him, they're not coming back. And if you're in the house when they don't, people will start looking at you next. They already think you know more than you do." As if to prove his point, the man in the hoodie suddenly slammed the trunk shut and stepped closer to my mother, saying something I couldn't hear but could feel in my bones wasn't friendly. My father appeared then, emerging from the driver's side, his face tense, voice low. Alex grabbed my elbow. "We have maybe 30 seconds before this turns into something you can't unsee. Decide now. Do you want to walk away from this? Or stay and watch it play out?" I didn't speak. My decision made itself. My legs were already moving, following Alex as he steered me back down the alley, away from the weak light and into the dark where the sound of my parents' voices faded. My head was buzzing, every thought slamming into the next. Walk away? From my parents? It sounded impossible. Until I pictured those duffel bags again. The way my mother's hands lingered on the zippers. The way my father's eyes darted around like he was calculating escape routes. When we reached the end of the block, Alex stopped under the cover of a tree and finally let go of my arm. He looked at me like he was bracing for me to scream at him. Instead, I said, "You've been watching them." His shoulders dropped a fraction, as if I'd just confirmed something. "For weeks," he admitted. At first, I thought it was small stuff. Weird meetings, new phone numbers, sudden cash. But last week, I found out about the shipment. Tonight, I was supposed to intercept the buyer before they showed up. Then I saw their car in the feed. He shook his head. "I knew if you stayed at that table, you'd get pulled in without even knowing it." I wanted to ask how he had access to feeds, but I knew it wasn't the time. My phone buzzed again. 3 missed calls from Mom in rapid succession. Then a text. "Where are you?" No punctuation, no warmth, just those 3 words. Alex saw it and said, "Don't answer. Not now." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. My entire life, my mother's messages had been orders dressed as care. "Come home now. We need to talk." "Don't tell your father." But this one felt different. It felt like a net being pulled tight. Alex glanced over his shoulder toward the alley. "If they make it out of there, they'll want to know what you saw. If they don't..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The sirens in the distance started low, building fast, moving closer to the very street we'd just left. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the still night air, bouncing off the brick walls around us. I could see the faint red and blue reflections, starting to dance along the corner of the alley we had just walked away from. Alex's eyes flicked to mine, sharp and deliberate. "We're going the other way, now." We started moving fast, his hand barely touching my arm but guiding me with precision, like he'd already mapped every exit in his head. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might echo loud enough for someone to hear. Halfway down the block, I risked a glance back. 2 police SUVs screeched to a stop near my parents' car. Doors flew open, officers spilling out, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands I couldn't make out. The man in the hoodie raised his hands immediately, but my parents didn't move fast enough. I saw my father's hand twitch toward the car door, my mother stepping back like she was calculating. That hesitation cost them. An officer rushed forward, yanking my father's arm behind his back, another blocking my mother from moving anywhere near the trunk. The duffel bags were out in seconds, unzipped, the contents spilling under the streetlight. Even from here, I could see the bricks of cash stacked like building blocks. Alex kept pulling me forward until the scene disappeared behind parked cars and overgrown hedges. "They'll try to call you," he said, his voice lower now, almost calm. They'll say it's a misunderstanding, that they're being framed, that they just need you to explain something to the police. You cannot take that call. My throat felt tight. They're my parents. He stopped walking, looked me dead in the eye. And right now, they're also people who would have let you take the fall if you'd been sitting in that passenger seat. You need to decide which matters more. His phone buzzed and he glanced at the screen, his face shifting into something unreadable. They're being transported already. And someone's flagged your name in connection. We don't go to your apartment. We don't go to your car. We don't go anywhere that can be traced to you tonight. I realized then this wasn't just about what I'd seen. It was about staying one step ahead of whoever thought I might be part of it. The weight of that settled on me like cold water down my spine. So where do we go? I asked. Alex took a slow breath. Somewhere they can't follow, and somewhere you'll finally hear everything I haven't told you yet. We cut through side streets until the wail of the sirens was just a faint echo behind us. Alex kept his pace steady, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds, scanning shadows like he expected someone to step out. My mind was a blur of images. The bags of cash, the way my parents looked at that man in the hoodie, the sound of police doors slamming. We ended up in front of an old brick building with a faded sign over the entrance. No lights in the windows, no cars out front. We can stay here for the night, Alex said, unlocking a rusted side door. Nobody checks this place anymore. Inside, it smelled faintly of dust and engine oil. The floor was concrete, and against one wall sat an old couch draped with a blanket. Alex set his phone face down on a workbench, then turned to me. Before I tell you everything, you need to know one thing. The police are not the only people looking for your parents, and if anyone thinks you know where that money's going, they won't care that you weren't involved. I sank onto the couch, my hands gripping my knees to keep them from shaking. So why don't we just go to the police and explain? Alex shook his head slowly. Because once you're in the system, every word you say goes on record. If the wrong person gets hold of it, you're done. And there's another problem. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a plain manila envelope, placing it on the coffee table between us. This showed up at my place yesterday. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Your name, your phone number, and a list of every address you've lived at since you were a kid. Someone's keeping track of you. And I don't think it's random. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. What do they want from me? I asked. Alex's expression didn't change. That's what we have to find out before they decide to collect. I stared at the envelope like it might move on its own. The list inside wasn't just addresses. It was my life laid out in ink, places I'd almost forgotten, even the apartment I'd stayed in for 3 weeks after college when my first job fell apart. Whoever compiled it hadn't just done a background check. They'd been watching. Alex leaned back against the workbench, arms crossed, studying me like he was gauging how much I could take before breaking. You said my parents weren't the only ones they're after, I said finally. Who else? His eyes flicked to the floor, then back to me. Anyone who might know where the rest of the shipment is. The bags you saw? That's not all of it. The total's closer to 5 times that. Which means what your parents had tonight was either a partial delivery or bait. The word lodged in my chest like a stone. Bait for who? Could be the buyer. Could be someone they think betrayed them. Could be... He hesitated, and that pause told me more than anything else. Could be you. My pulse spiked. Me? I didn't even know any of this until an hour ago. Alex nodded. Which makes you perfect. Clean record, no obvious ties, family loyalty they can count on, or think they can. If they'd gotten you in that car tonight, they could have claimed you were delivering the bags for them. When it went bad, guess whose name ends up in every report? The realization hit like a slap. My parents wouldn't. But the memory of my mother's cold, flat, "Where are you?" text twisted in my head. Maybe they would. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, but I didn't move. Alex glanced toward the sound. They're going to keep trying. And tomorrow. Morning, if this makes the news, They'll find a way to make you look guilty before you even wake up. He stepped forward, voice dropping. That's why, starting now, you disappear with me. No calls, no posts, no contact. If you want to survive this, we erase you before they can find you. The word erase hung in the air like it had weight. Heavier than the dusty smell of the garage, heavier than the envelope still lying between us. Erase me? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What does that even mean? Alex crouched so we were eye level. It means we start by killing every trace that says where you've been and where you're going. No cards, no IDs. We wipe your phone and get rid of it. You don't go back to your apartment for clothes, for mail, for anything. You leave it all behind. My gut twisted. And then what? I just vanish? His gaze didn't waver. For now. Until I figure out who's pulling the strings. You can't help your parents, not tonight. But you can keep them from dragging you down with them. He stood, pulling his own phone from the bench and checking it. We've got maybe 3 hours before the first version of the story hits. The press. That's when the phones start ringing from numbers you don't recognize, and people start showing up claiming they're here to help. I swallowed hard. And you know this how? Because, he said, tucking the phone into his jacket. I've seen it before, same setup, different names. The way he said it made me realize I'd barely scratched the surface of what Alex was capable of, and what he'd been involved in before tonight. He tossed me a small black backpack. It's not much, but it's everything you'll need for the next 48 hours. Change of clothes, burner phone, cash. Don't lose it. My fingers curled around the straps like they were a lifeline. He walked to the door, looked out into the night, then back at me. Once we leave here, you stop being who you were and she. Hour ago. You keep your head down, your mouth shut, and you trust me. You ready? I hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Because ready or not, I already knew there was no going back. Alex didn't waste another second. We slipped back out into the night, avoiding the main roads, cutting through narrow alleys and empty lots until the city noise thinned into a low hum behind us. Every streetlight felt too bright, every passing car too slow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, someone already knew where we were going. After nearly 40 minutes, we stopped in front of an unmarked steel door set into the side of a warehouse. Alex keyed in a code I didn't see, and the lock clicked open. Inside was nothing like the outside, clean, quiet, with low amber lighting, and a faint smell of coffee. It looked like a cross between an office and a safe house, with a small kitchen tucked into one corner and heavy blackout curtains over every window. He locked the door behind us, then walked to a desk and pulled out a slim file folder. I didn't tell you everything earlier, he said, flipping it open. Inside were printed photos, grainy surveillance stills, of my parents, taken over the last few weeks. Meetings in parking garages, handing off envelopes in cafes. One shot made my stomach drop. Me, stepping out of my apartment 3 days ago, holding a grocery bag. In the corner, barely in frame, was my mother's car. They've been following me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Alex slid the photo toward me. Not just following. They've been placing you in their story piece by piece. That's why tonight mattered, because if you'd stayed, they could have tied you to the drop without you even knowing it. I pushed the photo back, my hands trembling. And now? Now, he said, leaning on the desk. We get ahead of them. We find out who your parents were working with, who's missing that cash, and who decided you're part of their cleanup plan. Because trust me, if we don't, the next time you get a text telling you to leave, there won't be time to walk away. We didn't sleep that night. Alex was at the desk, making calls I couldn't hear, writing names I didn't recognize, while I sat on the couch clutching that black backpack like it was the only thing keeping me in one piece. By sunrise, the news broke. Aerial shots of my parents' car surrounded by flashing lights, reporters throwing around words like organized theft, money laundering, and possible federal charges. My phone, now powered off, and locked in Alex's bag, would have been exploding. Instead, I watched it all from behind blackout curtains, my name nowhere in the story. Yet. Alex finally turned to me, his face unreadable. You've got 2 choices. We disappear until this burns out, or we burn it out ourselves. I knew what he meant. My parents had made me the perfect scapegoat my whole life, for their bad moods, their broken promises, their failures. Tonight, they'd almost made me the perfect criminal too. And for the first time, I didn't feel an ounce of guilt about walking away. I stood, pulling the backpack over my shoulder. We burn it. Alex gave one sharp nod. No drama, no speeches, just the two of us stepping out into the morning like ghosts, leaving behind the wreckage they built for me to drown in. Because family stops being family the second they hand you the knife and tell you to hold it while they run. And I'm done being the one left holding it. This story was written by me, the creator and owner of the YouTube channel Revenge with Sarah. Every detail, twist, and turn comes from my own imagination and storytelling. Subscribe for more true-to-life revenge stories you won't forget.